Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and let's get you going with this. It looks like CNBC decided to cover the Consensus Conference.
One of the biggest crypto events of the year, the CoinDesk Consensus Conference, is wrapping up in Austin, Texas today. Our very own tech reporter, Mackenzie Sigalos, is there. She's been speaking with some of the biggest names in the industry. Mac, it's good to see you, and what are you hearing?
Hey, Kelly, good to see you too. I've been speaking with crypto CEOs, federal regulators, and VCs who are heavily invested in the sector. And the number one topic of conversation here in Texas is regulation of digital assets in the U.S. You've got this major legal battle brewing between Coinbase and the SEC, and people here feel that the outcome will really set the tone for whether the crypto industry can continue to operate in the U.S. Now, just in the last few days, this fight between Coinbase and the SEC has escalated. Coinbase sued the regulator on Monday, and then yesterday, the crypto exchange publicly shared its response to the Wells notice that it got from regulators.
Okay, so basically Coinbase is threatening to move offshore if the case doesn't go their way. Now, this made me laugh this morning because sometimes, this is part of the reason I cover this eGrag crypto, is because to me, it's quite obvious that he makes up terms makes up charting terms just to make it kind of funny, which I love. I think that's great because some of the terms are so maybe, I don't know if ridiculous is the word, but anyway, I just think it's funny. It makes watching the charting stuff fun because the guy actually does know the charting, but he's doing it with a sense of humor, and I appreciate that. XRP Bermuda Triangle, $27. We have heard that. Then I'm just going to take you through some of them that I like. He says the XRP price will disappear from the Bermuda Triangle and will never be seen within the triangle. The 7 arcs. Okay, we haven't heard that one. Here's a new one. Red Lake, the battle of the battles between bulls and bears. Price targets are mentioned. Stratosphere, Blue Ocean. This is the place where sharks and whales will start coming to swim. And here is the Bermuda Triangle. This is the Red Lake. Where's the Bermuda? Okay, the Bermuda Triangle is this tiny yellow one. But anyway, the point is that it's both funny and, for those into it, informative. Stay steady. $27 is coming. We will tango with the sharks and whales. Be patient. All right. Now, what's the bank called? First Republic Bank has now been purchased. It's been seized and sold to JP Morgan. Go figure. And I said controlled demolition. As you consolidate all the power in small number of banks you designate as systemically important. That's what Jim Rickards called ICE 9, folks. Excuse me. Now, I want to show you this because they had, who better to have on than, did Gary Cohen? Has Gary Cohen now, well, he's been on Twitter. I didn't know that. Okay. Gary Cohen, and they had Jay Clayton on their show to talk about this. And of course, Jay Clayton thinks it's great because he's a big JP Morgan fan. But this is the part I wanted you to, because this is a flashback to the financial crisis. They used a term called moral hazard back in the financial crisis, and he addresses it right here. Gary Cohen does.
Should have even happened.
Yes. Look, the question is, have we created the new moral hazard? And the moral hazard now is never buy a bank until it goes into receivership.
But we already knew that after what happened in 2008.
You're going to get a much better deal when it goes into receivership. So yes, everyone knew that the First Republic was going to.
Now, the moral hazard comes into play when you start bailing out anyone. The second that you bail someone out, I remember having this argument with people at parties during the financial crisis. Once you bail out Bank A, but you don't bail out Bank F, all of a sudden Bank F, who has to compete with Bank A, is not in as good a position to compete. That's why you don't bail people out. You let them fail. You let everybody fail. Let them win, let them lose. Because without that, you can't have real capitalism. You have government something, whatever you want to call it. And these guys all love that because they're buddies with all the government people, so it works for them. The problem is the victims of it. Bank F. The victims don't love it so much. And there's more victims than there are beneficiaries, like this guy and all of his friends. That's why they think it's all great. Now, for a long time, I discovered Ripple and XRP. They called it Ripple back then, back in 2013-14. Ever since then, not at the very beginning, but it didn't take me too long to figure out this was something different. And I've always felt like this was a 1 in 100, maybe 200 year opportunity. And this guy actually says it. The first clip is, I guess it's some guy, I think he sounds like he's from India maybe. And he's talking about the US dollar and how he's basically telling the truth about it. And I've always believed that XRP was a part, not necessarily one digital reserve currency, but maybe one of a few. But it was going to be a part of this 1 in 100 to 200 year change. So I put together this little video with the first clip that was going around this morning.
I genuinely feel the biggest financial terrorist in the world is the US dollar. All our monies are in Nostro accounts, and somebody in the US can say, you cannot withdraw it from tomorrow morning, and you're stuck.
Yeah.
That is the power of the reserve currency. And I think we are at a very crucial time in the world history, where the world is desperately looking for an alternative reserve currency. These changes happen once in hundreds of years.
The ability to have real-time liquidity is transformational. You know, the global pre-funded, what are called Nostra-Vostra relationships, it represents something on the order of magnitude $10 trillion. If we can make that more efficient and more useful, we can actually accelerate the engine of commerce kind of on a global basis. Ripple, from its earliest days, has talked about how do we enable an internet of value, and really enabling payments to move the way information moves today. And I think that's pretty dramatic.
And I truly do believe this. I always have, not always, but at least in the last 4 or 5 years, I've believed this. I believe that I believe what this is all about, what digital currencies are all about, is creating some sort of a compromise to, I think the United States has known that nobody keeps the world reserve currency status, and I believe that XRP is a part, not necessarily the whole thing, but a part of creating a worldwide compromise in where the world goes financially into the next 100, 200 years. That's what makes sense. I do believe that there have been bad guys along the way, and we'll show you some of them here in a second. Just in, Syria calls to abandon US dollar for global transactions and adopt the Chinese yuan. Okay? Now, we've watched Ripple being tied up in a lawsuit for the last 2 years. I've always said, this is not SEC versus Ripple. This is SEC/Ethereum versus Ripple /XRP. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at their own words.
Well, let me start by saying I think it's great for the blockchain and crypto industry to have players like JPM leaning in. Thumbs up. Yep. That's great. That's the only nice thing I'm going to say about this.
You mentioned Jamie Dimon, so let's bring it back to Jamie and JP Morgan. What do you think is going to be the thing that they will have to change the most or lose market share and somebody else is going to do better, faster, serve their clients better than JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs?
You can just hear the bankers panicking right now.
But what
feel the panic in their voices.
Okay, so I got asked this last week. I was speaking at a Morgan Stanley conference, and somebody asked me, there was this set of headlines about, about the JPM coin.
Our company consensus has been very prominent since the start of the Ethereum ecosystem. I can attest that JP Morgan was there right from the start before public mainnet was even launched.
This guy was from Morgan Stanley who was interviewing me. I said, so is Morgan Stanley going to use the JPM coin? And he's like, well, probably not, you know. And so, well, is Citi going to use a JPM coin? Is B of A going to use a JPM coin? Is PNC? And the answer is no.
So Consensus has been working with JP Morgan for quite a long time, more recently, to discuss how we might work together more intimately. And so
does that mean we're all going to have these different coins? And does that mean like we're back to where we are, where there's lack of interoperability? So like, what? I don't get it.
The Quorum team is heavily engaged with us for at least a year to facilitate transition, and we're working together on a shared roadmap that we've defined and will continue to define together.
One more quick thing on JPM coin. So let's think about this. The JPM coin, they announced for institutional customers, if you give them $1 in deposits, they'll give you a JPM coin that you then can move within the JPM ledger. Wait a minute, just use the dollar.
Right.
JP Morgan started paying attention to Ethereum blockchain technology even before public mainnet was released. So they started experimenting and building out some things when we were still building proofs of concept.
Well, I really don't understand. Like, if you're just moving it within the JPM ledger, and it has to be dollar to dollar, you know, a one-to-one backing, it honestly doesn't actually, I don't understand what problem that solves.
They had a handful of different teams that focused on blockchain technology, and we've interacted with them roughly from the start. We started to interact with them in a really concerted way around the time of the advent of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. We were two of the major drivers of that initiative and have been two of the major drivers of activity inside the EEA since launch, really.
Now, back to my first answer. Look, if it solves the problem of JPM being associated as they're leaning into crypto, yay. That's all I got.
It's after the press planning. They plant the press stories. They put out lawsuits. They create as much of a fuss as possible. They try to get their government friends involved. And then they go, oh, God, this thing's happening.
Well, look.
I think that pretty much explains it. And then think about this for a minute, and I'll finish here. I think it's genius what the government and all these Wall Street people, in my opinion, have done together. What you do is you write into the Bitcoin code that you write something in about the bailouts, and this is how you convince everybody this is a libertarian movement. Then you start saying use this instead of gold. You do that for years. You say, whoa, this is all for money laundering. This way you get all the bad guys to come in and buy it too. That way you can track everything that they're doing. And that's how you get them into Bitcoin. Then you make it the Bitcoin Ethereum show, which that you know are two lesser technologies. Then what you do with the Ethereum thing is you yell decentralized from the rooftops. And you want to do that because you know that you disguise the whales in the ICO and that it's a controlled thing in the hands of a handful of people behind the scenes. But then if you can create your own reality, as Joseph Lubin said, if you yell decentralized and even use terms that he's used, like it's massively decentralized, you make it really sound decentralized. You do this, and then what do you get? Then the cherry on top is since literally Ethereum is the banker's coin. What you do then is you get all your media and your pundit friends, and you get all of them to point at XRP and point at Ripple for the next few years and call it all kinds of things. You call it a scam. You call it banker's coin. You say you send your guys out on CNBC to say, I just don't understand why this thing would have any value. That's what you do. What a playbook that would be, wouldn't it? I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that the one problem with their playbook is that they never saw us coming. Thanks for listening.